When it comes to treating cancer, there are only three different modalities that are usually employed to combat this devastating and deadly disease. And the more traditional methods include radiation therapy, surgery, as well as chemotherapy. And these have been the weapons in the arsenal of treating physicians for a long time. However, there's a new class of cancer treatments which has physicians, patients, as well as investors all excited about the future potential. And we're introducing and covering this new treatment modality in this video. I firmly believe that as an investor, you should pretty well understand the kinds of companies and the technologies these companies are working on and developing in order to make smart investment decisions. Please note, in this video, I'm not going to discuss any particular companies, but I'm rather focusing on the background information that will help you to understand any of the companies I'm covering on my channel working in fact on these technologies. Because this video is intended as background information mainly on this type of technology, it is part of my HealthWealth Investor Toolkit video series. So if you want to find out what CAR T-cell therapy is all about, then stick around and learn about it in this video. Although I have a PhD in biomedical engineering and over 15 years of working experience in the healthcare industry, I do not intend to give you investment advice. Please consider your own risk profile before making any investments and research your investments wisely. When it comes to treating cancers, I find it best to utilize the analogy of military warfare to illustrate the point why CAR T-cell therapy may be really a much superior method of treating cancer. While radiation therapy, chemotherapy, or surgery certainly have their place in the treatments of cancers, we have not employed a defense mechanism against cancers that has actually evolved over millions or even billions of years in all forms of biological life, and that is our own immune system. Any of the traditional cancer treatment modalities cannot avoid collateral tissue damage, that is, the injury or even the killing of tissues that are healthy and in fact not cancerous. Nowhere is this more evident when you consider chemotherapy. When you consider the downsides of chemotherapy, patients feel extremely sick, they lose their hair. Well, this is because chemotherapy, for the most part, is targeting cells that are dividing rapidly, and hair also grows quite rapidly and therefore is impacted by chemotherapy. And in this sense, chemotherapy in particular has a systemic effect on the patients being treated, rather than a localized effect really only impacting the actual mass of cancer or individual cancer cells in case of metastases and circulating cells in the bloodstream. Drawing on the analogy of military warfare, this is akin to carpet bombing. So, if we want to kill the enemy and keep collateral damage low, carpet bombing is not the right approach. A better military approach is actually the use of snipers. They identify specific targets and take them out. In our case, of course, the target are cancer cells. And we can think of those as rogue agents of the patient's own body. Because cancers are derived from the patient's own tissues, it is somewhat of a challenge for the immune system of the patient to recognize, identify, destroy, and kill these cancer cells. However, make no mistake, our immune system is probably the most sophisticated machinery of warfare ever devised in biology. In fact, our immune system is extremely specific. Amongst the billions of cells that make up the human body, there are lots of cells, such as T killer cells, circulating throughout the human body. Amongst other cell types, these cells are capable of detecting individual invading organisms such as bacteria and viruses. And they surely need to do so, because viruses as well as bacteria, even from a single organism entering the human body, can multiply rapidly and cause disease. Therefore, relying on the rather crude methods of chemotherapy, radiation therapy, or even surgery, the new type of cancer treatment called CAR T-cell therapy actually employs the most sophisticated mechanism of defense, our own immune system, in fighting the cancers growing within our bodies. In other words, CAR T-cell therapy equips our own immune system with snipers specifically trained to identify and kill a cancer growing within the human body. So then let's find out how CAR T-cell therapy actually works. The first step of the process involves obtaining T cells either from the patient's body or from a healthy donor. And so here we have the first big distinction. In case the T cells are provided by the patient, we talk about autologous CAR T cell therapy. And in case the cells are provided by a healthy donor, we talk about allogeneic CAR T cell therapy. After the T cells are isolated from the blood, the CAR T cells are made in the lab. Potentially through biopsy and genetic sequencing, the genetic makeup of the particular cancer may be identified in order to produce the right kind of CAR T-cell therapy. A specific gene is inserted into the T cell, leading to the expression of the chimeric antigen receptor on the T cell's surface, and after which the T cell is considered a CAR T cell. The next step then involves expanding or multiplying these genetically modified T cells. Then, after sufficient quality control, the cells are ready to be reinfused into the patient. In some cases, patients may undergo preconditioning treatments in order to ensure that the modified T cells can actually engraft and multiply in the patient's body. And for that reason, CAR T cell therapy is considered to be a living therapy. The CAR T cells continue to proliferate and survive and multiply in the patient's body for the rest of their lives. And this should provide immunity against the cancer also for the rest of the life of the patient. The cancer is actually destroyed because the CAR T cells have receptors that bind to the antigens that are presented on the cancer, and as such, the T cells identify the cancer and will recognize it or treat it as any other foreign invader, thereby killing and destroying it. So far, CAR T-cell therapies, there are actually 3 which have been approved to treat blood cancers, but for the most part are still subject to clinical trials. However, the potential is huge, and this is why from an investment point of view, as well as from a patient point of view, highly interesting. So let's wrap up this video by comparing the advantages and disadvantages of autologous versus allogeneic CAR T-cell therapy. Autologous CAR T-cell therapy is truly tailored to each individual patient, meaning that the cells, once they are obtained, then have to be actually transferred into CAR T-cells, expanded, and then reinfused, obviously. However, the fact that for each patient this manufacturing step has to take place actually requires a lot of time. Severely diseased patients may not actually provide enough T cells to begin with or healthy enough T cells to even enter into the process. Plus, the duration it takes to manufacture these cells, then expand them until they're ready to be reinfused, may be too long for some severely diseased patients. The cost is quite elevated because the treatment is unique to each patient. This is in contrast to allogeneic CAR T-cell therapies. These can be mass manufactured actually ahead of time because they're obtained from healthy donors. There is really no time delay in essence, and there are no concerns about having enough cells to actually enter into the manufacturing process of these CAR T cells. As such, the expected cost for allogeneic CAR T cells is going to be less, plus they would be immediately available for a patient who needs a treatment. However, since these T cells are then not the patient's own T cells, they would be rejected by the patient's own immune system if foreign CAR T cells are reinfused. Therefore, allogeneic CAR T cell therapies requires an additional step to render these T cells basically invisible or unrecognizable as foreign to the patient's immune system in order to avoid that they are being rejected by the patient upon infusion. I hope that the information contained in this video is useful and helps you understand better the specific companies I'm covering on the HealthWealth channel, discussing and developing CAR T-cell therapies for numerous different kinds of cancers. If you enjoyed this video and the content, please consider liking it and subscribing to my channel.